Thank you, folks, for coming out today. The Green Party of Pennsylvania, in particular, Wyoming County and other northeastern counties, comes together today with Jay Sweeney regarding Jay's candidacy for state senate in the 20th senatorial district of Pennsylvania. We also intend on talking about the challenge brought by supporters of Lisa Baker regarding Jay's candidacy. And after Jay speaks, we will also address briefly two federal court actions that the Green Party is a litigant to, which challenges the constitutionality of Pennsylvania's ridiculously restrictive and two-tiered ballot scheme. By two-tiered, we mean first and foremost making third-party and independent candidates get disproportionately more signatures than the major parties. And secondly, after obtaining those signatures, having to go through what Mr. Sweeney is going through this year, challenges brought by law firms on behalf of wealthy politicians to mute the vote. Remember that if Jay Sweeney is not in this election, Lisa Baker runs unopposed. Unopposed elections are something we were used to hearing about in the old Soviet Union, in North Korea, and places like that. We certainly don't appreciate it in Wyoming County, especially from those who come from one of the most hypocritically flag-waving parties that America has ever seen in today's Republican Party. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our candidate and Wyoming County resident, John J. Sweeney.
On August 1st, I filed nomination papers containing over 600 signatures from voters in the 20th District with the Pennsylvania Department of State for the office of State Senate in the 20th District. I needed 500 signatures to appear on the ballot. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone that signed my petitions or helped collect signatures on my behalf to put my name on the ballot. I'd especially like to thank the residents of Falls Township and Overfield Township. On primary day, I went to the polls in Overfield Township outside the Lake Winola Fire Hall polling place, and 100 people signed my petition to put my name on the ballot. Only 266 people showed up to vote that day. Out of those people, a lot of people said the more the merrier. Other people said, I may not support you, but I feel you have a right to be on the ballot. Overwhelmingly, I think people want more choice on the ballot. I say democracy demands a choice, and the voters deserve one. Also that day, I spoke to Senator Lisa Baker. I told her, first of all, I thanked her for her support of SB 195, which is the Voters' Choice Act, which would level the playing field for third-party and independent voters and independent candidates. Senator Baker has co-sponsored that legislation for several years. Again, I thanked her for that. We had a pleasant conversation. I told her I didn't think I was going to be here to defeat her in the election, but that she had no challenger, and I felt she needs a challenger. She told me she had no problem with that. Well, a couple of weeks later, or a week or after I filed the petitions, I was surprised when I came home to find a packet in my door from the firm Conrad O'Brien. Opening the packet, I found I was challenged. My nomination petitions had indeed been challenged. The challengers characterized my petitions as exhibiting a pattern of impropriety. Among the line challenges were 16 signatures where the address did not match the one on file with the Department of State. 60 were illegible, mainly due to poor quality of photocopying that they had done. and 89 were claimed to be written in the hand of another. My good friend and comrade Carl Romanelli and I spent the next 2 weeks reviewing these signatures. I worked on my home computer before and after work, while Carl took some time off from work to go to the Luzerne County Courthouse to review the signatures. We prepared to come to the Wyoming County Courthouse and meet with representatives from Conrad O'Brien to review signatures here. And I would like to thank Flo Kellett-Ball for her help with the Shure system in finding voters and assisting in that process. And when we were done that process, there were still a little over 100 signatures remaining that had to be judged, and we had to go to Commonwealth Court to do that. So on August 25th, we went to Commonwealth Court before Judge Ledbetter. At the end of the day, I had 505 signatures, but the opposing counsel objected to several that the judge had awarded me, particularly in the category of the address did not match. If the signature matched and the resident was still within the district, the judge awarded those signatures to me. At the end, she said, well, I will hear, you can send written testimony to me in the cases that you cite. They presented one case. Our lawyer presented two cases of preceding law that she would review. She took about 5 days to review that, and I believe it was last Thursday, she issued her ruling. Now, I found out by calling the courthouse here, calling the Elections Bureau here on Friday morning to find out that there had been a ruling. We just got a copy of the ruling today. Our lawyer has not received a copy of this ruling. But in this ruling, the judge overturns her decision on those 7 signatures that were awarded to me. And now I'm at 498 signatures, and it's my choice to appeal this decision to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. I have not made that choice yet because, as I say, we just picked up this document. Our lawyer has not seen it. We need to sit with our lawyer, and now I understand we have until Monday. We had 10 days after this decision was rendered to appeal. So, like I said, I have not decided yet whether or not I will do that. We will sit with the lawyer and make that decision within the next couple of days. But I have 2 questions. What made Judge Ledbetter reverse her decision? And the other is, what is Lisa Baker afraid of? Senator Baker has all the benefits of incumbency. Shortly after I announced that I was going to run for office, someone approached me and said, you know, she's a member of ALEC. Well, I looked into it, and if those of you that don't know, the ALEC is the American Legislative Exchange Council. They're the biggest public-private association of state legislators. ALEC writes corporate-friendly legislation for introduction by the legislators. Right now, ALEC is fighting net metering. That's one of their big campaigns. And if you don't know net metering is if you install solar panels on your rooftop and you generate excess electricity and you want to, right now you can sell it back to the utility companies. They're under law, they're obligated to buy the excess energy that you create. ALEC is out to change that, to reduce the amount of money that people paid. They've already introduced this legislation in a couple of places across the country. A couple of states have introduced this legislation. And what this does is provides a disincentive for people to put solar panels on their rooftops because the payback will be that much longer. The other thing, maybe Senator Baker is afraid of the Green Party's New Deal. The Green Party introduced the New Deal in the 2012 Jill Stein campaign for presidency, Stein-Honkla campaign. The Green New Deal includes an economic bill of rights the right to a living wage, a safe workplace, and the right to unionize without fear of reprisal. It includes health care for all. Now, in Pennsylvania, there's a group called Health Care for All PA. They've done a study that through a 3% payroll tax and a 10% employer tax, health care could be funded for all Pennsylvanians, and very inclusive health care. It would cover everything: dental, mental health care, everything. Another thing that the Green New Deal calls for in the Economic Bill of Rights: affordable utilities. You might know, if you're a Penelec user, that Penelec has been granted by the PUC the right to raise their rates 12%. That's outrageous. The Economic Bill of Rights also calls for fair taxation, and in Pennsylvania that would mean close the Delaware loophole, which allows corporations to pay no taxes by claiming that they're based in Delaware. If we close that loophole, there'd be enough money for all our schools and everything we need in Pennsylvania. We would not have budget shortfalls. The Green New Deal also calls for a transition to a sustainable economy. Agriculture is still the -- industry in Pennsylvania. We need to protect our land. We have future generations, young people who are very interested in starting organic farms. We're seeing more of this activity. If you go to the farmers markets, you're seeing more younger people selling at these markets. And this sector of the economy has grown for the past 3 decades at least 5 to 10% per year. People are willing to pay a premium for good, safe foods, especially with the scares we've had recently over the last 10 or 20 years with different food products. We also need to transition to a 21st century energy program. Instead of relying on the 19th century gas and oil, these have the remaining gas and oil. It is a finite resource, and that which remains is getting increasingly harder to extract and at extreme environmental costs. We need to transition now to a 21st century energy policy featuring geothermal, solar, wind, and these are just the beginning. These are not the end all. These are what we know now. This will lead us, these I think are really the bridges to an energy future. We could put all our schools and libraries and so forth could have solar panels put on their roofs and not only generate power for these uses, but also perhaps put energy back into the grid. The BP plant in Noxon, the wind plant in Noxon, is a good example. I know the siting of it is pretty bad. It's in a view shed that it should not have been disturbed, and I've heard other problems with erosion and so forth. So siting of that particular plant was not the best, but it did provide good jobs. I had a friend that worked there, made very good money. But like the oil and gas industry, it's transitory. You have to move with the jobs. But again, we could do this small scale. Everybody's home could become a power plant where you create energy. If you were free to put rooftops, if there was incentives to put rooftop solar. California, I know did a million solar rooftops. Why can't we do that in Pennsylvania? The Green New Deal also calls for financial reform. North Dakota has a public bank. Why not Pennsylvania? Why do we need private entities profiting off the residents of Pennsylvania? And finally, a functional democracy is essential to implement the Green New Deal. One of my main pet peeves is the primary system. We all pay for it, but many of us are shut out. Until such time as everyone's allowed to participate in the primaries, I think the Democrats and Republicans should pay for it, or have conventions at their own expense to decide who their candidates will be. We also need passage of the Voters' Choice Act, SB 195, as I mentioned earlier, as Senator Baker supposedly supports this legislation. This would level the playing field for third parties and independent candidates. We also need a return to a paper ballot. You can't recount an electronic vote. These are issues that I will work for, whether I'm on the ballot or not. These are the issues that I support, have worked for the past 10, 15 years, and will continue to work for these issues. Meanwhile, I stand with the residents of Tunkhannock who oppose the silica sand transfer station. I stand with the residents of Milford who oppose the Milford compressor. I stand with the Gas Drilling Awareness Coalition in educating the public about what's going on with the gas extraction industry. I stand with Shale Justice, Citizens for Clean Water, PA Citizens for Clean Land, Air, and Water, Breathe Easy Susquehanna County, and all the residents of the 20th District who work to protect their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, and I appreciate the overview on some of your policy positions. And look, it comes down to the simple American tradition of coming up with the best policy by having an inclusive and comprehensive debate. However, nowadays, politics has been reduced to nothing but two versions of the same corporate spin by the same corporately owned political parties. And enough is enough. We need more citizen voice in the discussion concerning our own fate and the quality of our own lives. And to make sure that when we look at beautiful schools and courthouses and halls of justice and halls of the legislature, that those buildings actually house the individuals that hold the values to make those buildings worthy of their grandeur. And we can't have that when we won't tell the truth about science in order to have profit. When we won't tell the truth about the issues that are eating us up on the street, whether it be crime, addiction, quality of life, wages, etc. These issues need to be discussed. I also want to point out that I find it so frustrating, disturbing, and sad that this challenge would come from agents on behalf of Senator Baker using the same law firm that represents all Republican senatorial candidates when they file election challenges, because we thought that in Senator Baker we had someone who was different. We thought that even in disagreement, there was that respect for other opinions. We felt Senator Baker's office was open. The senator expressed her disdain for such activity when she agreed to co-sponsor the Voter Choice Act. And so this behavior, which clearly the senator had to be aware of, or we wouldn't be seeing it at all, is in direct conflict with the same spirit in which we thought Senator Baker signed on to that Voter Choice Act. But despite all of that, and as much as we're frustrated and disappointed with that, these kinds of machinations is what you get from politicians. And I guess Lisa Baker is just a politician. But what's been more distressing in my own case, in Ralph Nader's case, and in so many third-party and independent candidacies over the past 10 or 12 years, has been the lack of support for the constitutional rights of citizens, voters, signers of nomination papers, and so on. Because as frustrated as we are with the politicians, we would not be in such a terribly punitive situation as we are in Pennsylvania by being outside of the old corporate parties. And that problem falls squarely on the shoulders of the Pennsylvania court. As Jay alluded to in his comments, after hearing Judge Ledbetter talk about the rights of the voters who signed Jay's petition but moved within the county, she then issues an order based on the weaker case law in which she disqualifies signatures and puts the burden of overturning it on the shoulders of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which has shown that it doesn't have any will to settle any of these questions that have been brought before on some of the particulars. And it is for that reason that the Green Party, as well as the Libertarian Party, are plaintiffs in two separate federal actions, and in the older of the federal actions, a case filed in 2012, the Constitution Party of Pennsylvania is also a plaintiff. In that lawsuit, we seek to have the court review the constitutionality of requiring such a disproportionate amount of signatures for third-party and independent candidates, and then after obtaining those, being challenged and in many cases threatened or faced with the possibility of life-ruining legal fees being heaped upon the candidate or the party. In that case, we have actually finally made some real strides. Federal Judge Stengel initially dismissed the case, stating that the minor parties and the individual plaintiffs did not have standing to bring a challenge against on these particular issues. And he dismissed the case in March of 2013. However, we appealed, and the Third Circuit Court of Appeals on July 9th overturned Judge Stengel, stated clearly and almost in forever, or at least as long as these parties exist, we do have standing regarding various challenges to the election code. And the constitutional matters were remanded to Judge Stengel to finally be heard on the merits of those claims. So we hope to get satisfying relief from the federal courts telling Pennsylvania that you cannot do this to your citizens. But just in case this archaic and existing system is to remain in place, we've also filed a federal lawsuit this year challenging some of the individual manners in which signatures are challenged or stricken. Because as we speak here today, as we look at the uncertainty that Mr. Sweeney faces and how his fate is in the hands of a court we can realistically no longer trust, my heart is broken for the people that Jay or Jim or myself know who signed our nominating paper in good faith, and for whatever reason on August 25th or later, by virtue of this ruling, these signatures were disqualified in a bizarre legal gamesmanship that seems to be protected more so than the rights of speech of the citizen signers, the citizen voters, and the citizen candidates bring. So it's important that you understand this isn't a partisan matter. If you're an independent, if you're a Democrat, if you're a socialist, if you're a left-winger, a right-winger, a moderate, this all matters, because squeezing the speech of one is squeezing the speech of all of us, and it's important. And rather than take up all day to give the history and the details of these federal cases, I'll let you know that we are fighting in the courts as much as we're fighting in the field, and we hope to resolve these issues, but they can best be resolved through the Pennsylvania legislature doing away with the current system and enacting the Voter Choice Act, which is a much more rational, a much more fair, and certainly more in line with the promise, and we thought was the command of the Pennsylvania Constitution, that all elections in Pennsylvania shall be free and equal. Thank you.